Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Smith for letting me do a video presentation speech instead of having to come in. I was sick with the flu and I was just thanking for that. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good evening. My name is Nathan Morrow. I'm going to talk to you about something that some of you might not know. So something that, informative, something good. I'm going to talk to you about sonar. I was a sonar technician in the Navy, first class, for 11 years. For the Marine and Army guys, that is an E6. I did all kinds of different things related to sonar, and I was stationed in various sonar platforms, including ships, sensor stations, civilian ships, other countries, all kinds of good stuff. So I have a lot of good experience and knowledge on what sonar is, and I'm just going to touch the surface today just to give you an understanding of what it is too. Sonar actually is not a real word. It is an acronym, and it stands for Sound, Navigation, and Ranging. Some of you might know, watching the movies, what sonar might be. Hunt for Red October is a good example. Some of the Down Periscope is a very funny example of acoustic oral sonar. But overall, sonar is broken down into two separate types: active and passive. Passive sonar, which really, to break it down for you, is being able to hear but not making noise. They have sensors on all kinds of different platforms that allow them to bring in sound and not make noise, just to receive it and then see what they're receiving. So they have different ways and different displays. Most are classified on how to display that information, and all kinds of different organizations and companies use sonar for different reasons, but that's kind of how it's broken down, is that passive is just listening. It is not sending out noise. Most of you probably know that active sonar, the other type, is what you see in the movies most of the time, the pinging, the loud, obnoxious noise that if you're in the ship that's causing that noise, it is very hard to concentrate. The differences between active and passive mostly is the noise, because there's more to it, but really when you think about it, passive, you don't make any noise at all. If you can picture yourself standing in a room in the dark and there's someone else in the room and they make just a little bit of noise to tell you where they are, but you're not making any noise and you're just sitting there, so they don't know where you are, but by you hearing what noise they're making, you can figure out what direction they're in. So if someone makes a noise in the far right corner, you should be able to hear that noise and say, I don't know where they are or how close they are, but they're over here. And the same goes with active. It's similar, because active has to have someone listening in order to work. So active is more along the lines that you're standing in a grassy field and there's a snake in the grass, and you know the snake is in the grass because you can hear it. Well, you take a stick and you start making noise and poking around looking for that snake. It causes the snake to react. It can also allow you to know how far away the snake is from you. And so that's kind of what active is. It sends out a sound, it hits something in the water, and it comes back, and it allows you to know the distance or range of the contact. So the difference between passive and active for anybody in doing anything with sonar is that passive can only tell you what direction something might be, which will be bearing, and active can tell you what direction, bearing, or range, which includes distance. So it can tell you both of those things. Those are the two main differences between active and passive. The uses for active sonar mostly concerns tactical situations and operational standards. So when you find a contact and you need that contact to go a certain direction, you can use active to drive that contact to where it needs to go. In a passive setting, you are just listening to the contact passing. Whatever is happening is only related to the contact, not you. So you are just an observer, you're just watching it, and that allows you to get a lot of information. from whatever contact you're observing. It does not have to be a submarine, it doesn't have to be a ship, it can be whales. And that leads me to my next discussion, which is the differences of what sonar can be used for. You can listen to anything. A lot of oceanographers use it to listen to whales, listen to patterns of different animals in the water, all kinds of things. It doesn't have to be used just for tracking or contact evaluation, which was what the military uses it for. You can also use it to, some sensors can pick up earthquakes and can tell you the size of the earthquakes that happened underwater. And then it becomes valuable to some sensors and some stations that use that. I'm starting to run out of time, so I'm just going to talk about something a little more interesting, something that my favorite sound that I've ever heard in the water, and it was through oral, which is through the ear acoustics instead of watching a display. So we were able to listen to a tape of submarine going from the surface to go underwater, and it really was just an awesome experience listening to the difference in the water and the water pressure and the sounds that the engine and the components of the submarine make to shift over to being able to close all of the vents and everything it needs to do in order to go underwater. It was just incredible. It was something that if you closed your eyes, I could not describe or explain it well enough in the moment. It was a phenomenal experience, and it's something that really did help me appreciate what I do know. And some of it I'll probably never use again, and some of it, like today, I can explain it to other people. Hope that you learned something. For conclusion, just to go over it, the sonar is actually an acronym: Sound, Navigation, and Ranging. There are two main types, active and passive. Passive will give you just bearing or the possible direction of something. Active will give you bearing and also how far away it is from you, or range. Those are two most important types of sonar. And again, I hope you learned something tonight. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Nathan Morrow.